Another EV from Hyundai, this time the IONIQ 6.
Is that IONIQ sad or IONIQ sexy? Oh. Oh. Excuse me.
Sorry, Zach. Had to do it.
Everything went flying. All right, I'm back.
A lot of fun, a lot of fun.
All right, we are going to get into the styling of this. That really is what people want to talk about in our hot topic. That's coming up just after halfway through the video. We have a major data dump to put on you right now. What do you get under the hood or the floor of this IONIQ 6?
The IONIQ 6 comes with a 77.4 kilowatt hour battery, with rear wheel drive models getting up to 581 kilometers, 361 miles of range. All wheel drive models, 509 kilometers, 316 miles, with the larger 20-inch wheels that we have on our test model getting a little less, 435 kilometers, 270 miles.
All-wheel drive models have a 74 kilowatt hour front electric motor and a large 165 kilowatt rear motor. Rear-wheel drive models get just one 168 kilowatt rear electric motor.
Let's get into the power now. Rear-wheel drive models have 225 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque. All-wheel drive, 320 horsepower and 446 pound-feet of torque.
To make things even more complicated, in the United States, there's also a base standard range rear-wheel drive coming this summer. It has just 149 horsepower, but 240 miles of range. Did you get all that? Did you memorize all that? Guarantee you didn't, so probably a good idea to back it up and watch it again and to put all the graphics on the screen for you to digest it.
Yes.
Right now, we're going to get into what do you get with the IONIQ 6? What are the key standard features?
The base trim comes with a heat pump and battery heating system, a 12.3-inch touchscreen, and a 12.3-inch digital driver display, wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, a wireless charger, stain-resistant cloth seats, a power driver seat and manual passenger seat, heated front seats, a heated steering wheel, smart sense safety technology, 18-inch wheels, and a tire repair kit. In the US, some of these features are not standard, including the heated steering wheel and wireless charger.
Andrea has a drive mode over there on the steering wheel, but what are we going to put it in?
Got to put it in S for subscribe, and if you can hit that notification bell, you'll be notified when all of our reviews drop, and then you can watch them.
And we do this, the couple car review, twice a week. The first one drops on Wednesday.
We put another one out on Saturday.
So make sure you like and subscribe, but also follow along on Instagram. It's Motormouth_Andrea to see what's going on behind the scenes. For me, it's Motormouth_Auto, and the links are below the like button. So Andrea, electric cars are smooth, they're quiet, they have a low center of gravity, all that big battery below us, and now this is in a sedan form. Is it different than any other electric car?
Well, it's different in its own way. They're all a little bit different. First off, I find the suspension to be a little bit firmer on this model to something like the IONIQ 5 or even the Kia EV6. I feel that the steering is slightly heavier than those models as well. So it's almost like Hyundai has tuned this to be a little bit sportier, which is kind of what we expect from sedans.
We're going to get into why does this thing even exist when we get into questions, coffee, and cars.
There's a couple things I want to point out. As we mentioned earlier, the 20-inch wheels that we're riding on provide a little less range, so keep that in mind if you want to go with that top trim. Standard or 18-inch wheels. And also there are 4 levels of regen braking. You can use the paddle shifters on the steering wheel to control it, and you can bring the vehicle to a complete stop.
Okay, we're going to get into more depth about the looks on the outside of this. I will say one thing quickly. Having had it now for a week, it has grown on me. I see it in front of the house. I like the color combination. The wheels certainly look good. Yep. The more I look at it, the more I like it. What about you?
This was first introduced to us at the LA Auto Show, and at first, I didn't know what to think of it.
At first, this is what I thought.
What?
But now I kind of like it.
I agree with Zach. As the days have gone by in front of our house, I am warming up to it. Here's the thing about EVs. They are aerodynamic. This one in particular has a drag coefficient of 0.22, which is the lowest that a Hyundai model has. And this competes with something like the Lucid Air for drag efficiency.
But it's all the little details in this car that make it quite interesting. Like they've got this pixel design. You see that across the back of the car with all the squares that make up the rear light bar. Even the third brake light that's on the rear spoiler is quite unique looking. You see it at the front. It's mirrored throughout the interior of the cabin as well. It's a highly detailed design.
I think we can all agree the IONIQ 6 is very sleek looking with its low nose, active air flaps. You've got the elliptical wing inspired spoiler, and then you've got the Hyundai H emblem design in the front and rear, flush door handles, and 700 parametric pixels found in the headlamps, rear combination lamps, front low centers, and the air vent garnishes. This gets 5.6 inches of ground clearance.
We turn our attention to the inside. You would think it's just a copy and paste from IONIQ 5 to IONIQ 6, kind of, with some slight changes. First of all, you have the dashboard with these kind of winglets at either side. And the IONIQ 5 has a sliding center console that goes back and forth. This is fixed.
This is fixed. You've got more of a floating center console with the storage underneath. They both get the 12.3-inch dual screens that are under one fixed glass panel. And then at the center console, this is where you lock the doors and also use the window controls, which is usually something we see on the armrest of the doors.
Yeah, this is a super clean design for the doors. Creative, right? With a big mesh here for where this Bose sound system is, but you kind of miss it. This is really, if you've ever driven an old E34 BMW or an E32, they had the switches in the center here. They brought it back. It's kind of different. One thing I want to touch on, Andrea, the dual screens, okay?
Yes.
I have come to the decision after driving this car, these fixed dual screens are not ergonomically good for reading what's behind the steering wheel. So if you have just an instrument cluster that's separate, that's right underneath the steering wheel, you can see everything. When they do this, it's a compromise between what works for the radio and what works for the instrument cluster. I can't see everything behind the steering wheel when I'm driving.
Okay, I can. I feel the opposite.
Nice.
I actually think it's great. I was thinking when I was driving it, oh my goodness, this is fantastic compared to something like the Prius Prime, where I don't like that driver display whatsoever because it does block my view. So definitely try it, because look at Zach has a different impression than me, and I think it's fantastic. This touchscreen works exactly the same as every other Hyundai model. So because we've been in so many, it's actually really easy to use. Only one thing I'm missing, wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Another thing to point out, this sunroof you can open.
Will you look at that? Nice.
Let's get into the trims. It works a little bit different between Canada and the US.
Always.
Always. There aren't a lot of trims to choose from in Canada, really. You've got the preferred trim, and you can add the ultimate package to that. So we went through what you get on the preferred trim. Those are the base features. Add the ultimate package for $5,000 Canadian, and it's really going to open you up to so much more, like a power passenger seat, driver's seat memory, the sunroof, the Bose sound system, ventilated front seats, heated rear seats, blind view monitor, and the surround view monitor. There's also a head-up display in that package and leatherette upholstery.
Okay, so why do they bring in just a rear-wheel drive with stripped-down model? It's all to get it under a certain price threshold, which gets your tax money, my tax money, Andrea's tax money for people to buy an electric car. So that's why they have all of these packages. The one people really want is the all-wheel drive with all the toys. And that wouldn't qualify if they didn't do it that way. In the US, every trim is available with rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. If you go one up from the base model, that's the SEL trim, it adds a wireless charger and leatherette upholstery. The top limited trim has the same features we get in our ultimate package here in Canada. You have to add, though, a heated steering wheel. It's not standard like it is in Canada. And just like the IONIQ 5 that this is based on, it has an enormous back seat. Perfectly flat floor, you have plenty of legroom, pretty good headroom, the pitch of the seat is great, you can stretch out and relax.
Comparing the IONIQ 6 to the Polestar 2 and Model 3, the IONIQ 6 is longer than both. Front row legroom at 45.4 inches is big, beating out the Model 3 by 2.7 inches and the Polestar by 3.2 inches. Second row legroom at 34.7 inches is bigger than the Polestar 2 by about half an inch and smaller than the Model 3.
And this has a power trunk, which is not common in sedans. You have a very long cargo area, but you give up space, of course, because it's not a hatch.
Trunk space at 11.2 cubic feet is smaller than both, with the Model 3 having the most at 11.7 cubic feet. The IONIQ 6 has a frunk. It's small at 0.5 cubic feet.
All right, let's get into your questions.
Time now for questions, coffee, and cars.
Your questions from Instagram.
Interesting they didn't put the logo on the steering wheel hub like most vehicles do. Are those lights instead? Well, we've got some info for you. The 4 dots mean
Morse code for H. Clever, right?
super clever.
And it picks up on the whole pixel sort of look of this car with all of the pixels on the back. It's quite clever, the design.
Also, when you're charging, they light up so you know you're charging, which I think you already know you're charging,
You
right?
better not drive away while you're charging.
And then also when you use the voice commands, they light up as well. So pretty cool.
When you yell at it because it doesn't get it right, does it flash brighter?
Not that I know of. Doesn't seem worth the premium over an IONIQ 5. It has more range, but it feels like or seems like a styling exercise for Hyundai, of which I am not a fan.
Okay, they have got a brand new car in the market. It's called IONIQ 6. That gives them an opportunity to put the price up. Trust me, when they do some updates to the IONIQ 5, and with Hyundai, it could be any time now.
Any day.
Any day. They change like that, they'll adjust the price again. Can I just say one thing about
Sure.
this? I got a bit of a rant about this.
Sure.
Okay, what do people want to buy? Do they want to buy cars or they want to buy SUVs?
They want to buy SUVs.
Can people get the IONIQ 5 SUV or crossover vehicle? Are the lineups long for that?
They're long.
Okay, so they make these in a factory in South Korea, and they have limited capacity to make these for a worldwide market. So why would they take production capacity to make a sedan when there's already years-long waits to make the IONIQ 5? Why don't they take that capacity and make what people want to buy?
I'll tell you why.
Why, Andrea?
Because Tesla has something called the Model 3, and it's been a huge hit for Tesla. And so Hyundai has decided to take some of that market share away from Tesla and come out with a sedan called the IONIQ 6. They're different buyers. People who are looking for crossovers and SUVs are not going to buy this sedan.
But why do people buy the Model 3? They buy the Model 3 because they can't afford the Model Y. People really want the SUV. They're forced to buy the sedan because it's cheaper. In this case, it's roughly the same price. Make more of the SUV.
I'm in love with the IONIQ 5 and I love the IONIQ 6 just as much. What exactly would this compete with? Not many mainstream manufacturers have EV sedans. You're so correct. They're very little.
It has the Tesla Model 3, but that's not mainstream. It's expensive.
Yep, and they have the Polestar. Polestar 2.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
You could go for the Polestar 2, which is actually priced quite well, whether you get the front-wheel drive model or the all-wheel drive model. That's really it, unless you want to get a plug-in hybrid or you want to get a hybrid. There aren't a lot of sedans.
Yeah, like the Prius, right? That's a good alternative, the Prime. It's got pretty good range. And now it's time for our hot topic. What's this one, Andrea?
Amazes me at how Hyundai is not afraid of pushing the boundaries of styling. You see so many cars. What's your personal thoughts on the styling?
So beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I guarantee once this car's been out on the road for 6 or 8 months or a year, people will just go, it's the IONIQ 6. That's what happens after a car's been out. I just want to reference a couple of cars that I think it kind of looks like a little bit. The J30 from Infiniti. Andrea got a lot of that on Instagram, right?
Yep.
But the other one is the Mark II Jaguar sedan that was sold in the 1960s. If you look at the sloping back of that car, and of course it's an old car compared to a modern car, but the little bumperettes that go up and down, you see on the back of that Jag, you see the same thing mirrored in the design of this. They have those details on the back of this car. I kind of see a little bit of Jag in this.
Well, the biggest thing that I hear, especially when this first came out and was introduced at the auto show, is Porsche.
Porsche?
People see Porsche in the back of this. It's a real kind of Porsche vibe. I get it. I see it a bit. But
I think people want to see that.
But when I see Porsche, I don't know, I just see this absolutely gorgeous vehicle, whether you're looking at a Boxster, a 911, a Panamera. I don't see it with this. I want to like it. I really do, because I think it's super creative, and the design team put a real effort into this. I mean, they're really thinking outside the box. But I don't love it. Sorry. There's a huge problem with inventory right now for electrified vehicles. But you know, Zach, you had mentioned about the IONIQ 5, and why don't you just make more of those?
That's what people want.
But you can say the same for any manufacturer. You can't get a RAV4 Prime, so why make a Prius Prime? You can't get a RAV4 Hybrid, so why make a Corolla Cross Hybrid? Why don't you just give people what they want?
That's a good point, Andrea.
Right?
Yes.
But brands want to expand their portfolio. They just don't want to sell IONIQ 5s and RAV4 Primes.
All right, let's get into how quickly this thing can charge and more in our vital stats.
Let's start with pricing. We'll do Canada first and then move on to the US. The preferred rear-wheel drive long-range model is just under $54,000, and the top trim we're driving with the Ultimate package is just under $64,000 Canadian. In the US, the rear-wheel drive long-range model starts at $45,500, and the base all-wheel drive model, $49,000. The top trim is just over $56,000 US.
Because the IONIQ 6 has an 800-volt architecture, it can use charging infrastructure at 400 or 800 volts. With a 350 kilowatt charger, this car can charge from 10 to 80% in 18 minutes. For example, it can charge 100 kilometers or 65 miles in just 5 minutes. This car has a 10.9 kilowatt onboard charger, and with a level 2 charger, it'll charge in just 7 hours. It also has the available vehicle to load function. In the United States, buyers will receive 2 years of 30-minute complimentary charging sessions at Electrify America.
The IONIQ 6 qualifies for the federal EV rebate in Canada of $5,000 and any other rebates in participating provinces. This electric vehicle does not qualify for a tax credit in the U.S. Hyundai offers a warranty of 5 years or 100,000 kilometers, 60,000 miles. In the U.S., complimentary maintenance is covered for 3 years or 36,000 miles.
Lightning round. Two things we like to see improved.
I really like how this handles. It's just so smooth and quiet. Hyundai did a nice job.
And it's big on the inside.
And I'm going to keep saying it, we've got to get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto and Hyundai models.
I would prefer an instrument cluster separate from the radio.
I'm really impressed with this IONIQ 6. It handles incredibly well.
Hyundai is coming with a lot more electric cars. Stay tuned.